June 2nd, 2020, Board of Education meeting to order. And thank you for everyone that is here within the Zoom and those that are watching on YouTube Live. Appreciate you being with us. It's been a very unusual year. I don't think we've ever had anything quite like this. And hopefully we won't have anything quite like this in the future. But if you're on the Zoom, if you would keep yourself muted, unless you need to talk, and then you can take it off to do that so that we make sure that we don't have any distractions from that aspect of it and the background noise and those type of things. So that keeps you from having to put all your electronic devices on silent. So at this time, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Brown for our school spotlight with Colin Road Elementary School.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. We are excited to recognize Colin Road Elementary School as one of the Griffin-Spalding County Board of Education School Spotlight. So I am super excited to give this presentation. Colin Road Elementary School, how many scholars? There are 541 scholars at Colin Road Elementary School. What is the mascot there? They are the Cowan Colts. Motto, once a coat, always a coat. And they have 68 wonderful and amazing faculty and staff members. A quote from the principal on why she enjoys being the proud principal of the school. I love being the principal of Colin Road Elementary because it's a place where children know they are loved and respected. Our staff goes above and beyond to ensure our scholars know how much they mean to them. It is not an unusual thing to hear our staff members telling students that they love them on a daily basis. And of course, that love is demonstrated in their action as well. What are the good things going on at school socially and educationally? This year has been a year of growth for our school in many ways. We are proud of the growth shown by the scholars in our reading data as we have focused on guided reading this year. We worked to ensure all staff were trained and opened a new guided reading room to ensure materials for small group instruction were readily accessible. We are also proud of some of the new opportunities that have been provided for scholars through our Boys Mentoring Program, SWAG, Scholars with Goals and Ambitions, and our Girls Mentoring Program, PEARLS, Purposeful, Elegant, Aspiring, Respectful Young Scholars. Both mentor groups participated in meetings to grow their own personal skills for success, and the PEARLS work to contribute to the Colin Road community by serving as bell ringers for the Salvation Army during the holiday season. We're currently working on a STEM recertification. Members of the CRE STEM committee attended the annual Georgia STEM conference and visited other STEM certified schools to prepare for recertification. They also engaged in training one of the Georgia Department of Education coordinators who guide schools through recertification process and enjoyed a supporting partnership with Mercer University. Also, the Colin Road Kindergarten garden was rebuilt this school year. We hope to host a dedication ceremony in the fall. We also plan to host our first STEM fair for our scholars and families in the fall. We are also proud to announce the reopening of our Colts Collaboratory for the 2021 school year. The Colts Collaboratory will be a space where students are able to work together through the design process and create their own STEM projects. Mr. Chair, members of the board, and Mr. Superintendent, let's give it up for Colin Road Elementary School for the May 2020 Spotlight.
Awesome, wonderful. Well, and we have with us Mr. Evan Dial. He is a rising sixth grader. Just finished his stint there, and so after Miss Barbara Joe gives our prayer invocation this evening, then I've asked Mr. Dial if he will lead us in our pledge. And
Mr. Chair, I would ask before the prayer that we keep in mind with the current events that are going on in our world today, that we keep those families, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Tamir Rice, Trayvon Martin, Oscar Grant, Eric Garner, Philando Castile, Samuel DuBose, Sandra Bland, Walter Scott, Terrence Crutcher, and so many others in our prayers.
Hey, also, Mr. Chair, we want to remember Miss Pruitt. Her father passed, so we want to keep her and her family in our prayers as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for mentioning those, both of you. All right, Miss Barbara Joe. You muted, Miss Barbara Joe. Sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Our Lord and Savior, we're thankful for this day and all the blessings of it. Father, we're very thankful for this school system, for the leaders of this school system, for the students, for the teachers, for the staff, for the school board members. It is such a privilege to provide a quality education for our community. Father, we pray for peace in our country and in our world. As the words of the song say, let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. We're thankful for our men and women who defend our country. We're thankful for life itself, for the privilege of securing an education, the great equalizer for all of our country. And now as we go into our business meeting, let the words of our mouths and the meditation of our hearts be acceptable unto you, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. In the Master's name and for his sake we pray. Amen.
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 All right, Mr. Dial, if you will lead us in our pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate you being on with us and doing that with us this evening. And hope that sixth grade goes very well for you this upcoming year. Are you
Sir, thank you.
nervous at all? A little bit. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Well, that can be anticipated, but it's going to be good. It's going to be real good for you.
Yes, sir.
All right, board members. Excuse me. I almost forgot that we have our school system announcements. Mr. Brown.
Hey, Mr. Chair, many announcements are already on the agenda, and of course, with the events that are planned, they are subject to change due to the pending COVID-19 guidance. So we have baccalaureates, honor night, as well as graduations that are planned pending the COVID-19 guidance. And so I'll just ask that everybody monitor the school system website and check the communicator for that updated information. Concludes my report.
All right. Thank you. All right, board members, we'll then move into the adoption of our agenda. I do have one change that needs to be added, and that is just got omitted, and that is at the end of the agenda number, in between number 9 and number 10, and that is board member comments. So if you will place that in there. And if there's not any other changes, I would.
Mr. Chair,
yes, sir.
I spoke with you earlier today, and so I just want to make it as it relates to the consent agenda and other items. I have concerns about the following items.
Okay. Can you tell me which one's on the consent agenda first before you go into the others?
Yes, sir. Human resource personnel actions.
Okay.
I see that there was a name for the certified election of a band director, teacher at Griffin High School, Mr. Daniel Gooden. However, I do not see a release or a resignation from the previous band director. Can someone speak to that?
I believe that was on the May agenda. Was Ms. Dobbins on?
No, it wasn't on that, Mr. Smith.
It was a non-renewal, so that it was not required to be on the agenda.
That's right.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right, thank you so much. Under item 2, for mobile connectivity for students, I want to commend, and it's more of a comment, though. I just want to commend the staff for the research they put together that included the minority vendors who put in for that contract. And so as I was reading each of the memos, I just want to thank the staff for including that information so that we see that now that we have some minority vendors who are trying to do business with our school system. Just want us to make sure that we continue to monitor, who we're giving contracts contracts too, as it relates to Black and Brown business owners, minorities, veterans, and women in business. And so just want to say thank you for putting that information into the packet for us.
Okay.
Under the consent agenda, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to thank you for noting that. I think you'll see 2 or 3 of those memos that have information about the vendors who were from whom the bids were taken, and we are working on that process now, being able to capture more of that information as we move forward.
Thank you so much. And I also want to give a shout out to, that one was to Mr. Harper, but to Mr. Ballard, who also put in a very detailed report as to the vendors in the that are on the contract as well. So I just want to say thank you for that. As it relates to item 4, measure of academic progress, MAP and Mastery Connect, I just want to make sure that, you know, as we have this data, are we able to get it to where we're able to see a way to where measures are measuring how African-American students are performing on the assessments. You know, as a board member, that's always been a major concern of mine, that how our African-American scholars are, especially our African-American boys, are performing on those assessments. So I want to make sure that when we present this information, maybe no other board member wants that information, but I would like to start knowing how we are performing, how African-American males are performing on these assessments, you know, so that we can do what we need to do instructionally for them.
Okay.
And that concludes the items on the consent agenda.
Okay, and then let's finish, because we're doing the entire, adopting the agenda for the entire thing. So is there any other changes? I know you had shared some concerns that you had, and we will definitely give you opportunity to share those concerns when we get to that particular item, but there may be other things I wasn't sure.
No, I'm sorry. Somebody else is trying to speak. Go ahead. Let them while I look this up. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I just have a question about the number 5 nutrition bids for FY21. And this could be just a point of information for me as a fairly new board member. Bidding out the milk for the breakfast program, lunch program, and the after school snack programs. I only see one vendor there. Did these go to, did we bid this, or I'm kind of confused as to how that works. So if someone could please enlighten me, I certainly would appreciate it.
Ms. McDonald, this is one that it wasn't rebid this year. This is an extension of the bid from last year.
All right. Is that normal?
In the contracts, they are allowed to extend the bids for a year. And with all the situations and everything this year, we did some extensions on some of the others, I believe in May, and now we're doing it for the milk for June.
I guess I just find it kind of odd that all the others that we've seen that I can recall, we've always seen, and I read that it had the option of being extended contractually, but I guess I'm just used to seeing 3, and you know, knowing that 3 bids went out and we chose obviously the one that we wanted to or voted on. And I was just a little confused as to why that occurs.
That answers your question. That is unusual, but it does occur in this environment. So does that answer your question?
This environment as regard to the pandemic, or just in general?
I think this would have been in the contract for these particular items anyway. It's just that they've offered to extend their amount, and with the pandemic itself, it does make it a lot more difficult. So we've let them exercise their right to extend those bids.
And we're extending the bids at the same costs as before. So yes, they were bid out last year, and we did have the multiple vendors bidding. Within the contract, it does have the option of extending the bid for a year at the same prices previously stated or bid. So we were utilizing that this year with several of our vendors.
Okay, so I guess my real question is then, why would we not rebid 3 different vendors every year? I guess is my general question.
Well, generally we do. This is one of the things, as I said, with this year and the situation and availability of different things, the uncertainties, we thought we needed to go this route this year.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Chair, also under technologies, that's item 8, funding to support Carrboro Middle School Fine Arts. Just have a quick question. Why was it the funding not provided to Carrboro Middle School? Maybe Dr. Warren can answer this. Why was it not provided to Carrboro Middle School last year? Was it because of the teachers' exit from the district, or the program was not available?
No. It was because of the change of the instructor. They were not at that point of being able to use that money effectively at that point. So we allowed them to get through this year and then make those purchases now.
Okay, thank you so much.
It was allocated originally, but it just wasn't at the point they could effectively do that. So we moved to the end of the let them use it here.
All right, thank you. And also, Mr. Chair, this is more of a shout out to the Social Studies Department, Mr. Zario, and the information that he provided for ABC Text. We know that it's very hard for social studies teachers to find resources, and so it is good. And also, I feel like social studies have been previously underfunded, and so excited about the intentional investment and the purchase of aligned materials for 5th grade social studies, 8th grade Georgia studies, and high school U.S. history courses. And I am pretty sure, as a certificated social studies educator myself, that these resources will be able to aid teachers tremendously and better prepare our students for state assessments. And the last item is the food storage warehouse roof project. Like I said, that just a shout out to Bruce, that it is commendable that 185 vendors were contacted about the proposal. And we also saw where we were able to see the minority-owned businesses that were able to submit proposals for consideration. And so just want to give you a shout out to that and let you know that we're excited about where we are going in our push for to secure business for minority-owned businesses in our school district. And then how can we also, through other contracts, Bruce or Mr. Smith, how can we ensure that African-American businesses are kept in mind for future contracts?
That's what we've been talking about, putting those processes in place to be more visible in our bid packets, to do more to extend the opportunities, the awareness that we have those opportunities to do business with the district. And those are the things that we'll be working on here in the next few months to make sure we have in place.
All right. And I greatly thank you for the work that you're putting into this, Mr. Superintendent, to ensure that it is an equitable process for everyone that is involved in our school district. Mr. Chair, that concludes anything that I have on the consent agenda. Questions?
Okay. Any other board members have questions about the agenda before I entertain a motion? All right. So hearing none, I would entertain a motion for the adoption of our agenda with the addition of the board members' comments at the end.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, wonderful. We will move right into our recognitions. Normally we would turn this over to Miss Barbara Joe, but because it would just be a formality at this point with the videos, we're just going to go ahead and go straight to Dr. Warren for our Fine Arts Diploma seals.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm absolutely thrilled to present our class of 2020 Fine Arts Diploma Seal awardees to you. These 24 young men and women have completed all requirements to earn this prestigious seal on their diplomas. As a matter of fact, several are watching our meeting this evening. The Fine Arts Diploma Seal represents our pledge to fine arts in our district. The creative industries bring $29 billion into Georgia's economy each year. This consists of artists, actors, dancers, musicians, as well as arts administrators. The goal of the seal is to create students who prepare for college and careers in these fine arts related industries. It's a signal to employers as well as colleges and universities that our students are prepared when they leave our high schools. In order to complete and earn the Fine Arts Diploma seal, a student has to obtain 3 requirements. First of all, they must complete a Georgia Fine Arts pathway. They must complete a minimum of 3 courses in one of the fine arts subject areas, be it dance, music, theater, or visual arts. Pathway completion denotes mastery in this art form. Secondly, a student must earn a 4th credit in a CTE course that provides a creative industry skills focus or a 4th fine arts course. And last, students must participate in community arts partnerships to achieve a Fine Arts Diploma seal. They must share their talent and industry knowledge by completing at least 20 hours of community service and presenting a capstone presentation or project on their experiences. At this time, the names of our art teachers represented by these students this evening consist of Mr. James Lindsay, chorus teacher at Griffin High School, and the following teachers at Spalding High School: Mr. Nicholas Clark, theater; Mr. Brett Duncan, chorus; Ms. Laura Urich, visual arts; and Mr. Joshua Watford, band. At this time, I'm gonna call out the names of these 24 students. From Griffin High School in Visual Arts: Justin Castile, Richard Cruz, Emily Harwell, Virginia Singley, Paola Villagran, Savannah Whitaker, and also Caitlin Christian. In music, from Spalding High: Ariana Floyd, Caitlin Slaughter, Adrian Allen, Demi Driver, Michael Gooden, Andrew Lynch, Gracie Parker, Wesley Parton, Anna Leigh Schroeder, Emma Sprayberry, and Raven Williams. In theater and film, from Spalding High School: Nicholas Etcherson, Demetria Giles, Kelly Garcia, and Colin Walker. And lastly, from Griffin High School, we have 2 students in music, Cariel Waller and Naya Moses. At this time, we're going to show you all a video tribute to our awardees. I want to first of all thank Ms. Kim Green and Ms. Laura Bieber for producing this presentation. The seals will be affixed to their diplomas, and they will also receive a certificate at their awards program. Thank you. Do you have the music, Miss Joni?
The city center.
Thank you very much, Dr. Warren. I appreciate that, and all of everyone that had effort and work going into those videos. Those students are very much deserving of that, and so that is wonderful.
Yes, sir. And just to inform you, the video will be posted to our website and social media. Okay. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Make
Wonderful.
sure you add some sound to it, Doc.
There was sound. I'm told there was a sound delay. There was music to it.
There is sound. Zoom just doesn't carry over sound from audio, video.
Sound like operator error, London.
No, I tested it. So you don't have a problem with Google Meet though.
Dr. Warren, I got a question on the fine arts teacher at Griffin High. I saw only Mr. Lindsay. What's going on with the other? Are we don't have those positions filled? What's going on with those?
No, sir. What happened? Spalding High, they were able to take care of all the requirements and the capstone projects and presentations prior to being dismissed for the pandemic on March 13th.
Yes.
Griffin High had their schedule towards the end of March, which would have been in plenty of time for the state deadline. But with the pandemic and everything, that really hampered the efforts to complete the process at Griffin High for the remaining of the teachers and students.
Okay, so thank you, sir.
Yeah,
yes,
thank
sir.
you for that clarification. Very much so. Thank you for asking, Mr. Holmes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. It's our intent to be back up to have at least 14, 15 kids from Griffin High next school year.
Wonderful. All right. We will move on to Dr. Taylor and our Griffin-Spalding County School System Quality Leaders Academy.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me this afternoon. The Quality Leaders Academy started in 2015. This year, we conclude our 5th cohort. Under the umbrella of the Quality Leaders Academy, there are 2 groups. The first group is for aspiring leaders who are academic coaches and/or they are teacher leaders who are not yet in assistant principal roles. The second group is for aspiring principals, all of those who are sitting APs. This program is intended to provide informational sessions on pertinent leadership topics, mentoring experiences, site visits, and then also a capstone project. This year, there were 9 aspiring leaders and 9 aspiring principals who successfully completed the program. They are, for the aspiring leaders group, Demetria Collier from Cowan Road Elementary School, Tokianne Goodman, Carrboro Middle School, Tamara McCann from Kennedy Road Middle School, Courtney McCoy from Carrboro Middle School, Jasmine Monet, Cowan Road Elementary, Angel Pugh, Carrboro Middle, Lori Taylor from Atkinson Elementary, Barbara Tobarg from Jordan Hill Elementary, and then also Jenny Wilson from Jordan Hill Elementary. The aspiring principals who completed the cohort this year are Carenza Barnes from Carver Road, Chandra Bell, Cowan Road Middle, Gabrielle Burnett, AZ Kelsey Academy, Amy Chambers from Futrall Road, Pam Davis from Griffin High School, Rusty Hudson, Rehoboth Road Middle School, Emily Johnson, Cowan Road Middle School, Candace Stedman from Spalding High School, and Holly Williams from Moreland Road Elementary School. We also this afternoon do have a video presentation in which you'll be able to see the capstone projects that they completed this year. Ms. Mullins.
Go, Tamara.
Thank you. And we'd also like to congratulate Courtney McCoy, Angel Pugh, and then also Amy Chambers, who moved into leadership positions this year. Thank you.
That is absolutely wonderful. We have had many discussions in our board meetings about leaders of completing this and being ready for promotion within our system, and we're excited to see it.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a suggestion that all PowerPoints be on that same time limit.
I thought I was a speed reader till I saw that.
All right. Thank you so much for those recognitions tonight. And Ms. Joni, do we have anyone signed up for public comments?
No, sir, we do not.
Okay. All right, board members, with no public comments, we'll move right into a motion or accepting a motion for our consent agenda items.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I do thank you for all of those that made the comments earlier on some of those items and got your questions answered on those items. Hearing no other questions or discussion, I would all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All right, we will move then into our action items. So that will start out with our fiscal year amended budget. It has Mr. Ryan McLemore's name. I haven't seen his face. I know Mr. Jones is with us, but we'll, there, I heard a voice.
Mr. McLemore here.
Yeah, I thought I seen him on.
Yeah, can you hear me okay? To stick to that 54-second time limit. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, good evening, I guess. And we do have the amended budget. I know we talked about it at the workshop at the end of April. I'm sorry, at the end of May to set this up. And so basically what you have is every year we look at doing an amended budget that collapses certain funds that we report in our financials each month. We keep them separate internally, but for audit purposes, we have to collapse them. So what you'll typically see is general fund in one column, and then we collapse in our after school program and our workers' comp fund. And then at the same time, take into account any changes and effects that we've talked about over time, particularly in this situation. But it also recognizes a number of grants that we receive the amounts for after the original budget is presented. So it's incorporating all of that to start with our new appropriation. But I will just highlight the budget itself. I tried to detail out each individual change that's involved with the revenue line items. Is for the most part, the expenditure line items in our general fund there was no actual addition to anything because we're really looking at saving money for next year. Most of that was just functional shifts depending on what our actual payroll looked like from the time we adopted our budget last year to who got hired at whatever experience level and where they fell on salary schedules. So I just want to highlight as you look through that, of course, if you have any questions on the detail write-up, but ultimately we're looking in this collapsed amended budget of an addition to fund balance of $667,000, but our goal is $2 million, which we talked about at the workshop. So the expectation is while we have these expenditures, they're not changing a great deal at the general fund level and the addition of these grants. The goal is to hopefully have more revenue than what is on here, which with property tax with the last collection we got, it's coming in really well as underspending this by a more significant amount, because what we really are trying to have this look like moving forward is a $2 million addition to our fund balance that we will then use as part of our FY21 budget planning, to get us over the hump of this situation with the pandemic. So the appropriation levels there, ads, grants, there was, I did have some cut of cost in the regular general fund program, but overall, are there any questions around what's being presented with this? So in other words, it's a conservative number that is being presented because our expectation is to add significantly more than the $667,000 that I'm showing us add to fund balance on this.
And so we won't know this until after June is closed out completely. So July or August.
Yeah, so we've identified a number of areas. We've kind of talked about where revenue was exceeding. For example, if you take that ad valorem tax line with the $300,000 that we added in property taxes, we're going to exceed that. So we know that now there are pockets, just because we just received additional data, that are going to exceed on the revenue side. But in the expenditure side, we've identified pockets by department that we have an expectation of not spending as well. So I want to maintain an appropriation level that gave us some flexibility, but at the same time, we already know at this point that we're on track for that $2 million savings. It'll just be finalized once you actually close the book, and then you have the audit done where you'll see the actual addition to fund balance.
Okay. Any other board members have questions?
I'll also just mention one other item in there. You may notice in the last schedule that for the special revenue funds, that's really just taking into account any change in the actual amounts of our grants that we received, such as Title I, Title II, and all that. It's just a reflection of what we actually received and the state approved for most of those. And then the last page also is the nutrition fund, which in this amended budget, we increased the transfer to the nutrition fund by $350,000. I'm hoping that one on the expenditure side as well is a little conservative because this budget shows a use of fund balance still, but I'm hoping that the expenditures there will also come in under and it won't require that use of fund balance. That one is a lot more variable where it's harder to lock in what the actual costs are going to be until closer to the end of the year.
And that cycle of food distribution is happening through June, correct? Mr. Smith?
It is. It will continue in this current form at least through June. As you know, we have a proposed in-school summer school program set for the month of July, should we be allowed to do so under health considerations and all that. If that program goes forward as is being planned now, the food distribution will look different. It'll look more like it's done in the past summers with more of the in-school congregate type.
Okay. Board members, if there's no other questions for that, we have a proposed amended budget. I would entertain a motion to accept that.
Mr. Chair, I just have a quick question.
Sure.
With regard to school, I guess this is the appropriate time to ask it. Regard to summer school, with regard to what Mr. Smith just said, when will we know or not know that we will move forward with summer school? I mean, when is the next update out by CDC and the guidelines and et cetera?
I can let Ms. Jones, who's talked about that, speak as well. But right now we're finalizing those plans for the summer school program, how it would actually operate. As you know, the latest thing that came out from the state did allow summer school programs, summer camps, etc.
Right.
However, we are, and I was going to mention this later, but I'll mention it now in terms of the whole thing. We are working, as I put in my Friday update to you and a copy of the letter, we are working to put together a team of local and District 4 health services, state people who deal in the health area, emergency management area, to advise us on whether our plans can go forward safely.
Okay.
We are working to get those plans finalized this week, and to that group ahead of a meeting next week at which time we want to get their input as to whether we can move forward with graduation exercises. All of those, that week's activities is included in it, the summer school activities as well. If they come back and say that the current guidance and current conditions in our county and your plan line up and allow it, we'll move forward. If they come back and say things are not like they need to be to make this work, then we'll put it off.
Okay.
So we are going to work with a group of health professionals to make that decision in the next few days.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Then I would entertain a motion to accept the amended budget as proposed. I have a motion. You have to take yourself off mute to say a second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second.
Did you see me move my mouth, man?
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right. All right. We will move then on to our appointment of board attorney, Mr. Smith.
Mr. Chair, did everybody vote? Ms. Mullins needs to make sure that everybody voted or is accounted for in that.
Okay.
Yes.
If
You
they're
voted,
raised
put your hand
hands,
up.
we'll make sure we hear them.
Yes.
I don't see Mr. Brown on my screen. Is he?
I'm here.
Okay. So you are in?
Hold on, let me turn off my. Okay, there we go.
So
yes.
you were good. Okay, wonderful.
Okay, thank you.
All right. We will then move on to our appointment of board attorney, Mr. Smith.
Can I make a comment just on budget before we get to that for a moment?
Absolutely.
I do want to just go in and make a little extra comment about the fiscal 21 budget that we're working on as well. We've got a lot of work that's been done on it, and we were looking at the possibility of being able to have a budget by June 30 and move forward from there. But frankly, there are just too many unknowns left out there from the legislative session right now for us to make those kinds of assumptions that would require very significant amendments later on. And so we really don't lose a whole lot by doing this, but we will be presenting a continuing resolution to you at the next meeting on June the 16th at a meeting with the workshop that would allow us to continue spending in July at the rate of 1/12 of the current year's budget. And that does not require the budget hearings. It's not a budget adoption. It just gets us from this month into the next. We get those final pieces of information from the legislature, make those decisions, bring those back, have our regular budget discussion with the board, public hearings, and adopt the budget in a timely, in a normal fashion, but use the continuing resolution to get us past this uncertainty. The legislature is set to convene on June the 15th, which puts it pretty late in the month and not many days left to finish that budget. So there's still a lot of uncertainty sitting out there right now.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
The item that we have next on the agenda is one that we take up each year at this time, which is the appointment of board attorney for the coming year. You have the action memo there. The recommendation is to continue with Mr. Tim Shepard of the law firm of Smith, Welch, Webb, and White at a compensation rate of $180 per hour plus $35 per hour for secretarial administrative time incurred. That is the same as the current rate that he and the firm are charging. Mr. Shepard has been the board attorney since 1997, and in my opinion, has done an excellent job for us, and I'm very proud to recommend that we continue that. This is not a position that we are required to bid out for professional services, legal, accounting, architectural, those kind of professional services. And I think that maintaining Mr. Shepard's knowledge base and understanding of our system will be very beneficial to go through these next few years, next year.
And I know Mr. Brown has a few comments that he would like to make, but I also want to let both Mr. Brown and Ms. McDonald know that it wasn't too long ago that we kind of had this kind of discussion and we talked about where Tim's fees, where he fell on the continuum across the state. And he's kind of in the middle of that ground as far as that pricing. There is some out there that are less expensive, and there are some out there that are much more expensive. And so obviously we have to be comfortable with whomever we put in that position that they are going to cover us. Everybody says amen.
Amen.
Mr. Brown, I know you had a few comments that you wanted to.
I do. I have a couple comments that I wanted to share in regards to this. A while ago, I met with the superintendent, one of those virtual meetings that we had. I went and met with the superintendent beforehand and asked in regards to documentation of the billable hours from the board attorney as it relates to the current litigation status of things that are going on. I have not received that yet. Also, in documentation where the no review of the board attorney's work has been done as to the number of cases or litigation, whether we won them and lastly is moving forward, how we can make this an equitable process. Understand that you don't have to put it out there, but I want to make sure that every person in Spalding County hear me, and that every member of this board and everybody that hears that it needs to be an equitable practice for obtaining services with our school district. And we need to be able to put it out there and leave it out there for a certain amount of days in the event that if no one is interested in the position, and then we move forward that way. But at this moment, this current time, I believe that there is some work that we need, or I need as a board member to move forward in this process, looking at like I said, requesting a track record and writing of the outcomes of the cases. In regards to Mr. Shepherd, the documentation of the billable hours for the current litigation that is going on with the school system, and the amount of hours that have been spent. And so, like I said, I know that the review has probably not been done before, but I feel that my elected responsibility to this school district, to my constituents, to the scholars, and everybody who will have to be involved in this process is to ask these questions. The board may not care about the billable hours. The board may not care about the work that he's done and want to see it. But me as a voting member, that's what I would like to see before I'm able to vote on this issue.
Okay. Any other board members have questions or comments?
I will let Mr. Brown know that this is not the first discussion, and so it's not like it's hadn't been discussed. But I just want to make sure you knew, Miss McDonald as well. We've had this discussion before.
So, Mr. Chair, since we've had discussion before, let's try to put something in place to where we can make sure that we meet the needs of everybody that is elected to this board. And I'm not sure what the conversation went last year, but there definitely needs to be some accountability, and I need to be able to see that. So I ask that this item comes off the agenda and get the documentation that we need, and at the work session, we can move forward so that we meet our July deadline.
Okay, board members, as of right now, it is set as an action item for tonight, but Mr. Brown is proposing and I guess you just make that in a form of a motion, Mr. Brown?
To table.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
1 second, Sue.
Okay.
Mr. Brown, are you wanting to go ahead and make that as a motion to
Yes,
table?
sir. I would like to make a motion that we table this item until we get the documentation that's been requested by a board member to the superintendent and the information that's been requested right now in this space, in this time. So I'd like to make a motion that we table this item.
Okay.
I second for the sake of discussion.
Okay, so we do have a second, so now we can move into discussion, and I'm going to go to Ms. McDonald to go from there.
I hear what Mr. Holmes and Mr. Brown are saying, but I would have also thought Mr. Shepherd or anyone that represents this board would every month provide a bill, so to speak, that would be his accountability record as to how he bills us and what he bills us for and what we pay out and I'm sure that's easy information to get, I would think. Is that how it's done, Tim? You just bill on a monthly basis, or?
It is there, and we do have that. Jim was able to easily put together the billable hour, how many hours he's done and all of that. Mr. Brown also had the question as far as this litigation that we are in, how much, and they didn't have it separated, how many hours to one towards the other. Mr. Smith, just with all that we've had going on, didn't have people in the office. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, Mr. Smith. You can do that. I just know what you have shared with me. And so with a motion in a second, if we can have more discussion before we move on to the vote, but that's, moving it on to the 16th would be an option.
Mr. Chair. Let me answer that. Or Tim can answer, but Tim does provide us with a detailed monthly billing of his hours, which includes the hours on individual cases. I'm aware of what Tim is doing for us, and I think the board is too, because Tim does bring things back to executive session that need to be discussed at that level. I think we're aware of that. To go back and analyze those bills will take a little while to do. And as we've just brought people back in on a regular basis this week, I'll need to have somebody go through all of those bills and break those out by individual items on it that we can do, if that's what the board wishes us to do.
Mr. Chairman, if I understand Mr. Brown's question, he's wanting to know how much has been billed on the GAE suit. Is that what he's looking for?
I think that's a portion of it. I don't think that's all of it. But
right.
Mr. Brown, you can answer that.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, for letting me speak to that. The billable hours on the GAE case and any other case that you have done. So, for example, you've had how many ever personnel hearings as the board attorney? You've sat in on how many tribunal cases? I just think that information is needed in moving forward for me. It may not be for the entire board, but we have to make sure that we're not continuing the same thing over and over and over. And so to bring some accountability, to bring what I think and what the constituents of the first district have shared with me, that's what I'm requesting.
Well, all right. I have recently had to break out the billable, the attorney's fees incurred on the GAE case. And it's about $21,000.
Okay. And that's good. I just want to see it in writing. Now, I'm not saying you're a bad attorney. I'm just hearing. Mr. Chair, I have the floor, so I should not be interrupted during this time.
Well, you interrupted me.
Mr. Chair, I have the floor. I should not be interrupted during this time.
Go ahead, Mr. Brown, finish, and then we'll give Mr. Shepard an opportunity.
Thank you, reclaiming my time. So what I have requested are those items. You may think it's funny, Mr. Shepard. I don't. And so that's what I'm requesting. We got a motion on the floor. Let's vote on it and move forward. All
right, Mr. Shepard, did you have anything to add?
I was just trying to answer his question with regard to what first off, this is the first I've heard that Mr. Brown wanted this sort of stuff.
Understandable. And that is the whole reason he would like to just postpone until the 16th so he can get that information.
Well, I mean, that's up to the board. I will tell you, I will have difficulty breaking all that out individually because I don't break it out when I send a bill each month. I mean, if it's a personnel hearing or a tribunal hearing, I don't separate it out. I put the date that I perform the service, what I do, what it's related to, and how much time I spent on it.
And that's great. And I believe that with partnering with HR for the personnel hearings and Ms. Mullins with the tribunal hearings, we should be able to pull all the information together, and I think it'll be okay.
Whatever.
All right, board members, any other questions or discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I just have a recommendation as we do the HR report every month. Perhaps Mr. Shepard could give us a monthly report as to you know, what came up and what he had to act on, that type thing. That would keep us abreast of the situation. But I don't have any reservations of retaining Mr. Shepherd. That's for sure.
I do.
and guys, this is like not a joking matter for me. Mr. Shepherd has done a wonderful job, but as my responsibility of accountability, that's just the things that I need to see in order to move forward and be comfortable in this. Not saying anything against him. I think he's done a wonderful job. But those are the things that I would like to see in order to move forward.
Let me ask this, Miss Sue, with the suggestion that she made, and also Mr. Brown. Are you more? Are you more concerned about the dollar figure or the exact work? Because I think it should be a line item that Ryan or Mr. Jones income, he could break that out in a line item on the budget. If it's the dollar amount that's that you're looking to, or are you looking for an in-depth report on? I'll be honest with you, I'm not looking for another report. So I think we need to make it light on whoever's going to have to be pulling this together. If it's just a dollar amount, it could be a part of the financial report as a line item.
Right, and I agree with you, Leader Holmes. We can make it light on whoever's going to pull the information. But I would like to see, let's say, since May is already gone, we can still see what those hours that were put into in regards to the GAE case or anything else that he has done. So we can make it light. I just need the requested information to ensure that I'm comfortable to make this vote moving forward.
Okay, no problem.
All right, board members. So we have a motion and a second, and that motion was to postpone the appointment of the board attorney until the 16th. All in favor signify by saying aye. Put your hand up.
Aye.
We have 4, and those opposed?
Aye.
Be 1. All right, so we will move the appointment of the board attorney till the 16th, and Mr. Smith will work on getting that information out to us.
Thank you so much.
All right. We are now moving into the renewal of our memorandum of understanding with the UGA Archway project. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Smith, but I also know that Miss Angel Jackson, which has moved into Kristen Miller's role for us, even though she has several other roles, but she is on to answer any questions that anyone would have. But I will turn it over to you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you. This was on our work session last couple weeks ago. Had a very good discussion there. Information was sent out that we got from Archway to kind of explain what has gone on in that partnership in the last several years. The MOU itself was attached to that agenda. And so, Mr. Chair, my recommendation is that the Board of Education approve an MOU with the Spalding County Archway Partnership for the year 2021, outlining Griffin-Spalding County Schools' participation in the partnership.
All right, board members, we have that recommendation. Do I have a motion?
Before we have a motion, Mr. Chair, can we add some discussion to this?
Yeah, we need to do the motion and second it, then we'll discuss, Mr. Brown.
All right.
If you're okay with that.
Absolutely.
That's correct.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. McDonald, and I have a second by, was that Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Second by Mr. Holmes, and we'll then move into our discussion.
I just want to say that at the last meeting, I did make it known my concerns with the Archway partnership. We did receive information as to the projects, and again, I just feel like there's a better way that we can spend $20,000 of school district money, taxpayers' dollars, to actually do something that is of substance and worth doing. Going to Callaway Garden, as Leader Holmes say, for sleepovers and all that stuff, I think is something that we can do at any point in time. But I want us to really truly think about the number of kids that are not reading on or above grade level. I want us to think about the number of things that are going on that are not equitable in our school district. I want us to think about putting more into professional development and into, you know, the aspiring leaders academies and aspiring principals academies that we can use to better develop our people. And so for me, my vote is no as it relates to the Archway partnership. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other discussion or comments?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Just before we vote, I wanted to tell my colleagues in the cabinet that I have done extensive research and have talked to a number of people in our community long before I got here on board. I don't think this is the right time for us not to continue this with regard to, I agree with everything that Mr. Brown and Mr. Holmes have said, but I really don't think this is the right time for us not to approve this, because since I've been involved with the school board and prior to that, I do know this. I do know that how we are perceived in this community has changed tenfold. And for us to back away from this now with regard to the city and the county already being part of this and have voted to fund this, I think would put a really black eye on us as a school system. I don't want that to happen. I don't want us to regress. I want us to progress in that direction. And I think a negative vote for this board not to approve that would send a message to the community. It's a message that I'm not really sure I want to vote to send. I have talked with people that were part of Archway that went to Athens before Archway was even founded, so to speak, and sat in on those initial meetings. And I have been assured, I can tell you this, I have been assured that the new leader of Archway is important for Archway to hire, but the pandemic is the reason we do not have a new leader at this point. And they're looking for high caliber people to vet and hopefully hire, but those, they just have not applied as of yet. So I just don't think the timing is really good. So my vote will be a yes tonight.
Ms. Angel, can you just share a little bit of information about where we're at with it? I know leadership has been kind of a topic with a lot of the different board members, where we're at with that and what that process is looking like.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity. Good evening. So, yeah, Kristen Miller, who was the Archway professional, let us know she was leaving in December. And when we got back to campus in January, there was a university system hiring freeze in place, which meant we had to go through a few additional hoops to get the position approved. So we got it approved to be posted in February, and then COVID-19 happened. And so basically, as Mr. Smith alluded to earlier about the budget for next year, we're sort of in a holding pattern until we get a budget for FY21. Right. And we are screening applicants. We are looking at who's applying. But also, this is a really critical position that we want to make sure fits the community. And we want to, as we go through that process, ensure that we have the chance to actually do some in-person interviews so that we can make sure that fit is right. And at this point, everything's just sort of on hold. So I have been serving as the interim in the capacity over these past few months. So you're sort of stuck with me, as it were, for the moment. But we are screening applicants, and it is an active part of our work currently to find that person. So.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other board members have comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to, I'm not going to rehash what I've already said, but I thank one of our community leaders for giving me a call. And I've got a chance to look at this from another point of view. And I'll be voting yes, because it's something important that is moving forward through the process. But I wanted to ask a question. I know Archway eventually dissolves and leave the community, where are we at in that time schedule? How much longer will Archway be a part of this process? UGA.
Can I answer that?
Yes, that was to you.
Okay. So it's up to you guys. We have some communities that when they start in the Archway process, they have a very specific goal that they want to accomplish, and when that's done, they are done, as it were. We have some communities that have been Archway communities for 15 years, for 12 years, and they are still an active partner, and so it's driven completely by the community, and we're here as long as you all want us here.
Well, let me ask you this, Angel. When you say specific goals, that's something I've been here from the onset, from the beginning, and I haven't heard of a specific goal that we are even working toward. If that could be made known, maybe people will get more enthused about it, because right now, as I've said before, I haven't seen anything tangible that I can touch, feel, smell, and say that we've actually done, except for meet and have sleepovers. So is there anything on the radar that's a end result goal? That's what the major problem I want to ask, is there a specific goal that we are trying to reach? Because I haven't heard of anything.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I think I have the answer for Mr. Holmes. It's what this school system does. In my opinion, after talking to some community leaders, and again, leaders that were at the very forefront of this, of Archway, I think the city, county, and the school system, we need a strategic plan for Archway. I mean, look at our strategic plan that is up for renewal soon. I mean, I'm proud as a board member to go through that strategic plan. It keeps us on task. It keeps us moving forward. It keeps us reaching our goals. So I think a strategic plan for Archway is the answer to our questions. And I totally agree with Mr. Holmes.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, Ms. Sue, because a strategic plan, whether it's a 5-year, 10-year, whatever, right, we will all know what we are working toward, what's the end goal. And right, see, that's been my problem with this process. In your own household budget, you might want to buy Falcons tickets, in 2 years.
Sure.
That's my goal. But I mean, you have something that you're working towards, and, sure, and that's what I really want to know. Are we just meeting to meet and working on relationships, or are we trying to accomplish something in the community?
Angel, I have a question for Angel, Mr. Chair.
Okay, and I'll let her answer also Mr. Holmes's question about the strategic plan.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask her. Is that feasible through Archway to do that, Angel?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair.
Let Angel answer the question, and then you can.
So that's actually a current, we're discussing it in the morning. So we actually have a proposal right now from the Carl Vinson Institute of Government. That's a joint strategic plan between the city, the county, and the school board, which will probably be a year-long process. But yes, ma'am, and it's taken us a few years to get there, as you know, from some of our meetings. But yes, that's actually happening as we speak.
Sure, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Brown, was that you?
Angel, can you speak to what that plan is like? What are some of the things that are mentioned in the plan, and how are we going to address the issues of poverty, and especially what are we going to do to help, especially, some of my constituents who may need the assistance, or of however way as we are addressing the poverty issue in our school district? Are you able to speak to what the agreement or the plan that is coming down from the Carl Vinson Institute and those that are at the table dealing with the Archway partnerships?
Yes, sir. So the plan, what is going to be in the plan is really going to be dictated by the community, and they're going to do different interviews and focus groups and listening sessions over the next 9 months to figure out what that looks like. Poverty specifically, though, that has been a key discussion point for this group for years. And I think the work that started this past summer through the Poverty Informed community, at which, there were so many different school system employees there. But that's really been championed and picked up by the collaborative. But Archway is sort of right there with them, supporting their efforts and bringing in different experts. And we've had lots of really awesome meetings and great discussions with different providers and organizations from across the community, really trying to figure out how to tackle poverty in the community. And I'm happy to share all of our notes and things with you that's happened so far. But yeah, so there's that conversation, but then which also could be part of the strategic plan. It's just going to depend on what the community wants to see.
I also have two comments I would like to add to that. In talking with Miss Jewel Walker-Harpson about her EPI program, she felt as though it would not even be on the map without the help of Archway. And I have really seen, a lot of times you can get into some territorial type of things, of who's doing what, who's getting credit for what. And what I have really noticed between the collaborative, the Spalding Collaborative and Archway, is that there's none of that. There is a seamless working together, trying to make things happen, trying to get things done. The work when I was the collaborative coordinator on poverty, I could only take it so far because of the funding and time and efforts that I had and all that I was doing when because I was actually considered part-time executive director at that time. And so having someone that is Mr. Brown working on this poverty initiative as a main thing, but yet still keeping all of the entities together is pretty huge. And so the two of them working together, as long as we can keep them both moving in our community, I think it's going to be the very best.
Okay. And I just, the same energy that everybody has right now about this, Archway partnership and UGA or whatever the case is. I just want us to keep that same vibe, that same energy when it comes to us talking about, instructional things and how we're going to help to get our African-American boys on or above reading on grade level. Hope we keep this same energy and this same passion when it comes to talking about having equitable practice across our district so that Black and Brown principals feel comfortable and that they also feel that, outside of everything else about, what their counterparts are going through. So I just want us to keep this same energy and this same passion we boast in UGA. And I understand that it was, some great things have happened through this. It's just that I have not seen them. I looked at the list and I was happy to read all those things. And, my seat may also mention about planning something in front of the Southern Technical College, whatever, Southern Crescent. But I just want to make sure that we're looking at this from an equitable lens and the things that we're doing in our community outside of EPI or outside of anything else, that it's an equitable process to where the people in District 1, the Black and Brown folks that look like me, are able to benefit from this partnership. So that same energy that we're having right now, let's just make sure we keep it up. Let's just vibe that way.
Okay. All right, board members, we have a motion and a second, and we've had discussion. All in favor of renewing the memorandum of understanding with the UGA Archway program, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that will be
for you, Angel.
And those nay.
Thank you.
Nay.
Okay, before one. All right, we will move on to our presentation and discussion items. And thank you, Ms. Jackson, for being with us this evening. The ESOL program, Dr. Norman Sauce and Dr. Bearden.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good evening.
Good evening.
And Ms. Joni, if you'd be so kind as to pull up the PDF PowerPoint. There we go. Let's see. Ms. Joni, do you have the ability to reduce the size? If not, it's, oh, there we go. Perfect. And if you could go to the first slide, please. Thank you. Okay. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Mr. Smith, and members of the public. My name is Norman Sauce. I have the pleasure to serve Griffin-Spalding County School System as the Executive Director of Elementary Education. And I'm proud to have our school district's coordinator of pre-K and Esol programs, pre-K and Title III programs, Dr. Chris Bearden, with me this evening. And we want to give the board and the public an update overview of matters related to our ESOL program. We have quite a bit of information, some of which we'll speak to in depth, some of which we'll just speak to briefly and allow the PowerPoint to serve as a reference after the fact, so that we can stay within about a 15-minute time frame. Ms. Joni, if you could go to slide 2. Thank you very much. Quickly, just kind of a quick overview about some information related to our ESOL program. You may or may not know, currently GSCS serves 304 English language learners in grades K-12, which is about 3% of our school district population. Our ESOL program is available at all schools in our district. We have 6 full-time itinerant ESOL specialists, which means that those 6 teachers are shared amongst our 18 schools and have different schedules serving time in those schools across the district. Our annual budget for materials, trainings, things of that sort is about $36,000. We have 3 instructional models, depending on the school and the number of ESOL students served at the school, which is standalone classes, push in and pull out. And for those that may not know, the last bullet there shows the different languages that are spoken at home amongst the families whose children receive ESOL services. While Spanish is the most predominant language spoken at home for our ESOL children in the district, you can see the other languages that are also represented, not only Spanish. So Ms. Joni, if you could go to the next slide. And this slide here gives you a brief capture of how the ESOL population in our district has grown since the FY 2015. You see that we've gone from 161 children receiving ESOL services all the way up to 304 between 2015 and the 2020 school year. So almost doubled in the last 5 years. Okay, Dr. Bearden is going to share some information about the next several slides before I pick it back up.
Good evening again. Mrs. Bates, Mrs. Lisa Bates, she serves as our GSCS Esol parent liaison and district translator and interpreter. She supports our families of English learners on a full-time basis as of the 2019-2020 school year, which the position was previously a part-time position. She facilitates Esol parent support classes, provides in and over phone interpretation and document translation services for the school system to support student achievement, parent-teacher conferences, IEP meetings, MTSS 504, school events, central registration process, document translations, letters, handbooks, flyers, announcements, and she also facilitates Esol parent engagement, interactions, and understanding of GSCS policies and procedures. On an average, Mrs. Bates performs the following tasks: translations for district, schools, and parents, approximately 45 pages per month; face-to-face interpreting for central registration as needed, approximately 2 minutes, 2 per day, 2 meetings, 2 per day, sorry; phone interpreting, approximately 3 calls per day; on-site interpretation meetings at schools, special education IEP meetings and reviews, MTSS, parent-teacher conferences, approximately 6 to 12 meetings weekly; special events hosted by GSCS district level, approximately 1 per month; special events hosted by schools, 2 to 3 per month; English classes for parents of English learner students, 1 class session per week. This slide portrays Mrs. Bates in one of her sessions of teaching her parent support classes for our Esol families. Fall of 2018, she facilitated 15 families per session, and 2019, approximately 12 sessions she did for the month. You can see the parents in the photos. Mrs. Bates is at the top left with her hand pointing to the board. and some of the children are also portrayed in the picture. These are some of the topics that were discussed or she taught in her parent support classes for the Esol families. Practice English conversations, navigating My Payment Plus portal, understanding sight words, understanding free and reduced lunch applications, understanding the IEP process in special education services, the MTSS process, PBIS, Positive Behavior Intervention Support Plans, GSCS attendance policies, mock parent-teacher conferences with the parents, understanding GSCS field trip policies, services provided by school nurses, school checkout, check-in procedures in the mornings and afternoons, paying school fees, communicating about their children's needs with school staff, and reviewing the GSCS student handbook. We also have another service available for parents and GSCS staff members, Language Lines. Language Lines is an interpretation services. These are the uses: 2018-2019, Language Line, 15 calls made. Language Lines for live interpretation services, and the fees were $233.18. That was the 18-19 school year. 2020, as of February 29th, 23 calls made for Language Line and a total of $271.11 spent. Through our Title III funding, we also provide tutoring services after school for our English language learners. 2018-2019 tutoring, we tutored 38 English learner students after school. 21 teachers participated, some ESOL and some general ed teachers, and tutoring took place over a 17-week period during the 2018-2019 school year. 2019-2020 school year, 41 English learners participated in the after-school tutoring. 20 teachers participated, and tutoring took place over a 13-week period due to COVID-19. This is a picture of Class A professional development for our GSCS Esol specialists. Class A is a professional learning program or professional learning session hosted by the University of Georgia. The bottom left picture portrays 2 ESOL teacher and 1 gen ed teacher, which participated in this training over a 4-day period hosted by the University of Georgia. Class A stands for Center for Latino Achievement and Success in Education. 30 hours of professional development on the instructional conversation pedagogy and its application to serve ESOL students. The training focus for ESOL specialists was to integrate listening and speaking standards into facilitated lessons to prepare culturally and linguistically diverse students for academic success and linguistic development. Our recent GSCS results show discernible growth for ESOL students on the Access Test, MAP and Reading, and MAP Reading and MAP Math, Georgia Milestones ELA, and Math results. International Literacy Association ILA Conference 2019, which was held in New Orleans. 1 ESOL teacher attended the conference along with one of our ELA coordinators, Ms. Melanie Lockett. This particular professional learning was research-based, peer-reviewed best practices in literacy instruction. Created a culture of literacy in your school, district, and community and it empowered students and teachers for greater academic success, especially English learners.
Learning that the President Hope Hicks, Jared Kushner, and Ivanka Trump were all involved together in planning that photo op outside the church.
In March of
If I
2019.
can stop you for just a second, Ms. Bearden. Someone has a TV going on in the background. If they could mute that, that would help us.
Griffin investigate this crucial question. Who are?
Go ahead.
Okay. In March of 2019, the Esol specialist and myself, we attended the TESOL International Conference, Teaching English to Speakers of Other Language Conference. Professional development opportunities for English language educators at all levels from around the world. It was a privilege to attend this specific conference that year because it was held in Atlanta. So that's a picture of us at the conference. Dr. Siles?
Yes, ma'am. Just let me get back to the full screen here so I can see. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. I had to get back to the full screen there. The next slide talks about professional development that we've provided for our general education teachers in the instructional framework known as Siop, Sheltered Instruction Observation Protocol. And we wanted to emphasize that we've taken steps to provide professional development, not only for our ESOL specialists, but also for our general education teachers who work with and serve our ESOL students. And of course, also our GSCS administrators who work with and serve and support ESOL children as well. So you see there in the fall of 2019, fall of 2018, and the spring of 2018, how it breaks down in the way of the number of teachers and administrators that we provided training for. This slide also at the bottom shows the schools that we've targeted in specifically to provide support for our general education teachers who have some of the highest percentages of ESOL students in our district. If you will go to the next slide, Ms. Joni. Ms. Joni, did you catch that? There we go. Okay. So this next slide, the next slide just shows a picture of some sessions from the fall of 2019, in which we partnered with Dr. Ayana Cooper, who's truly one of the international leaders in research around instruction for English language learners. She's worked with state departments of education, international ministries of education, and school districts around the globe, quite frankly, well published in this work. She's actually based in Georgia, and she's worked with us for the last 2 years now in providing professional development with administrators and teachers, general education teachers in this work. If you would, Ms. Joni, to the next slide. This next slide just shows the components of the Siop framework, the components of instruction that are embedded within the Siop framework. You see there's 8 components. This is just a visual to provide some clarity or understanding of what those components are. And to provide some effectiveness data, if you would, Ms. Joni, we'll just kind of go quickly through. So the next number of slides that the board and the public can certainly look at provides pre and post survey data from teacher participants in these trainings to show their own perceived level of improved understanding pre and post the experience in this instructional professional development experience. It's broken down by domain, and you see that over the next number of slides, you can see their perceived level of improvement. Won't belabor the point, but certainly the board and members of the public can look to see in the next several slides the way that data is presented. But you'll see that in all 8 domains, there's discernible improvement that teacher participants expressed in their level of understanding and mastery in the dimensions of the framework. And lastly, for our presentation, just to kind of speak to some student achievement improvements that we feel our data has shown with our ESOL students in terms of growth. The next number of slides speak to that. This slide here talks specifically, if you could, Ms. Joni, stay on that slide. This slide here speaks specifically to MAP reading, MAP math for winter 2020 and for spring 2019. The first bullet there for MAP reading, this is median student growth percentiles of which MAP provides that data. Those growth percentiles work in a very similar manner to Milestones growth percentiles, for those that are familiar with those. But as far as MAP reading is concerned for winter 2020, you see there that for grade levels for EL students in the following grade levels, kindergarten, 5th and 7th, we had results that showed surpassing or exceeding typical growth, surpassing or exceeding what would be expected normal growth, if you will, by ESOL children in those grade levels in reading on the MAP assessment. For math, the second bullet point, you see that kindergarten, 6th grade, and 10th grade had results that surpassed typical growth in winter 2020. In the spring of 2019, a year ago, for reading, it was kindergarten and 2nd grade that showed results of exceeding typical growth. If you would, Ms. Joni, on the next slide. Thank you so much. The first bullet there is also spring 2019 results, so about a year ago for math, but it shows you that English language learner children in kindergarten, 2nd, 7th, and 8th grade, again, exceeded what we would consider typical growth. In other words, grew more than we could have reasonably expected or statistically predicted, if you will. So we feel like we have some recent MAP results that show a number of EL children and a number of grade levels across the system in both math and reading have surpassed what we could have statistically predicted in the way of their growth. Some similar results in the way of the access test. And for the board and members of the public, the access test is the assessment that's used by the state of Georgia and other states, a number of states around the country, that measure English language development, English language proficiency by children who speak languages other than English at home. And the access test is given every spring. In the spring of 2019, 73% of our ELs across all grade levels improved at least one scoring band on the access test. 73% of our elementary ELs. And in the spring of 2019, 52% of our middle school ELs improved at least one full scoring band on that same access test, which again is some consistent results with what we talked about related to MAP. If you would, Ms. Joni, on the next slide. So to get into Georgia Milestones a little bit, of course, we did not take Milestones in the spring of 2020, but a year ago on Georgia Milestones for ELA, 77% of elementary ELs achieved or surpassed that same statistically predictable growth. 66% of middle school ELs achieved or surpassed typical growth, and 61% of high school ELs surpassed typical growth. Again, what we could reasonably predict growth to be based on the statistical models that the assessment companies utilize in their algorithms. For Georgia Milestones math in the spring of 2019, a year ago, similar trends there. 57% of elementary ELs achieved or surpassed typical growth. 62% of middle school ELs achieved or surpassed typical growth, and 60% of high school ELs achieved or surpassed typical growth. If you would, Ms. Joni, the next slide. This slide here just kind of unpacking access data a little bit more. Keep in mind, this is a year ago's data. The state hasn't produced these reports yet for spring of 2020. But if you see the highlighted areas there, this shows you by grade band, elementary, middle, and high, the percentage of children with ESL services that moved one band or moved more than one scoring band on the access test a year ago. If you would, Ms. Joni. As far as achieving a score to actually exit ESOL services, you see there over the last 3 years, 14% achieved a score criteria to exit ESOL services in spring 2020, 19% in spring of 2019, 15% of our ELs in spring of 2018. And of course, while those numbers certainly look like relatively low percentages on the surface, keep in mind that it's often a multi-year experience for children receiving ESOL services, especially your most recent immigrants, to eventually build their English language proficiency skills to altogether exit ESOL services. It's typically not a 1 or 2 year experience. Often you're looking more at 3 or 4 years, sometimes maybe even 5 or 6 of ESOL services, especially depending on their immigrant status, to altogether exit ESOL services. So keep that in mind as you look at that data. Ms. Joni, if you would. The next number of slides, which I won't speak to specifically, break down more granularly that notion of typical growth that we talked about, typical or surpassing typical growth that we talked about on Milestones data in the spring of 2019. And you'll see on all of the next several slides for ELA and math by grade band, elementary, middle, and high school, the percentage of children. If you would pause there, Ms. Joni, for a quick second, the percentage of children receiving ESOL services who achieved or surpassed typical growth. I'll just draw the board's attention to two columns, the two columns on the far right, that 41 to 65 column and that 66 to 99 column. Not to bore everybody with a statistical lesson here, but the 41 to 65 column, that represents what would be considered typical growth, what we could reasonably statistically predict. The far right column, 66 to 99, that would represent where you have surpassed a reasonable statistical prediction of how much you would have grown. So as you would glance at those next number of slides that are formatted in this manner, if you look at that 41 to 66 column, that's children that achieved what we could predict as reasonable growth. The 66 to 99 column would be the children that surpassed what we could have reasonably predicted. And again, this is according to the milestones assessment. So you could go, Ms. Joni, to the beyond these slides that are formatted in that manner. Kind of already spoke to that in the highlights. Keep going, keep going. But the board and members of the public can look at those more granularly if they so choose. Which brings us to just kind of what's on tap for 2021 as it relates to supports for our ESOL children. We certainly plan to continue tutoring for students that are receiving ESOL services, as Dr. Bearden mentioned. We certainly plan to continue, or hopefully continue, with full-time ESOL parent liaison, Ms. Bates, the great work that she's done. Certainly plan to continue with the after-hours English classes for English support classes for families of students with ESOL services that Ms. Bates has provided. Certainly, obviously, we'll continue with our 6 ESOL specialists. We certainly plan to continue professional development sessions for both our general ed teachers and our ESOL specialists in support of our ESOL students. And we certainly plan to continue with Language Line, as Dr. Bearden mentioned earlier. That's a great live interpretation, 24/7 on-demand service. If I have a family in front of me that does not speak English, whatever language they speak, not only Spanish, Language Line provides on-demand, on-call, live over the phone interpretation services, either via speakerphone or a 3-way call, if needed, if Ms. Bates is not available for some reason, or language is needed other than Spanish, as Ms. Bates is fluent in Spanish. So we certainly plan to continue those. And I believe, Ms. Joni, if you want to go up to the next one, I believe this brings us to the end, and we'll certainly, Dr. Beard and I certainly will welcome any questions at this point.
All right, board members, any questions? I know that Ms. McDonald got knocked off for just a moment, but I think she is back on now. Thank you very much for your presentation. It is amazing the number of students that are English learners as this continues to grow over these years.
Absolutely. Thank you for allowing us to share.
All right. Thank you. We will move then to our presentation and discussion, the Proposity update by Mr. Akins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Holmes, I do not have a PowerPoint, but I'll try to keep this brief for you tonight. What I'd like to discuss tonight, this is a program or application that Ms. McDonald brought to our attention back several months ago, but right prior to the shutdown with COVID. Always looking for ways to help fulfill needs in our community. And this is one that I think would work well for us, just looking into it. So I'm gonna give you some brief highlights. Because of the pandemic and everything going on, it's kind of slowed things down, but I think it's something that we can definitely continue to look at. If the board likes this, and kind of have it ready to go in the fall. Proposity is a program or company with an app that talks about their mission to help inspire people to live generously or find purpose. And what I've always referred to is this purposeful generosity. And as we know, there's a lot of times in our community where there is a need. There are people out there that would be willing to help meet that need. Most of them just don't know how. So it's a matter of connecting the need with the person who can fulfill that need. And Proposity is one of the things that does that. How it works is that we have to identify within our system, and what we are looking at is our school social workers, because they are at the ground level of the needs within our community, whether it be homelessness, McKinney-Vento, or loss of a home, or belongings, or fires, or poverty, any of these things. They're at the forefront. So we were looking at having them kind of lead the way here, and I'll explain more about that in a minute. But how Proposity works is needs are brought up through the schools. It could be a school counselor, administrator, or teacher. We would have a contact point at each school because our social workers are assigned to different schools within the system. Needs arise, it will come generally to the attention of the counselor, definitely administrator. And what they do is they would share that with one of our social workers. The social worker then would go to the program and they have special access to a platform within Proposity. And what they would do is, through a simple form, they identify the need, provide other basic information to Proposity. None of this is personal identifying information. We're still under FERPA, so none of this is giving away any information. The child's name, none of that is given. Basically, they just give basic information about the situation for the need. Proposity then takes that information and kind of wordsmiths it, what they say, for maximum impact. They have things set up through Amazon, and then what it would do is go live into our community. By that, I mean each one of our social workers, or our system in general, in order for us to launch this, we have to set a goal. There's a certain number of followers that's needed in order for us to even go live, what they talk about, unlock for us to do our needs. And generally they say at least 100 followers, if you want to put it in the form of Twitter or things of that nature, 100 followers for each one of our people who can post these needs. If we go with all 5 of our social workers, then that means our goal would be 500 people within our community that are willing to follow and say that they are willing to at least take a look at these things and help when necessary. So once we do that, we identify it, we get this need, we are able to unlock and go live. Then what would happen is the social worker would send that to Proposity. What they do is they do these, they wordsmith them, and then once a week they send out notifications of the needs in our area for the school system and our students. It tells the story. They can click on it, read the entire story, the background of the need, and they can choose whether or not to meet that need. Whatever it is priced. It could be a homeless student who is experiencing homelessness that may need a new pair of shoes. And they can place that there, and a person can choose to meet that need and purchase that pair of shoes. The price for the shoes is there. They set that up. It goes through Proposity. They order the product. It is shipped to the school system. They are not involved directly with, Proposity is not involved directly with our students or staff. It comes to the school. It would go to that social worker. The social worker would then take that item to the person of need. Now, what they do with this, they stay away from large fundraisers and things of that nature. It's not for organizations to get into to raise funds like the wish lists or just different GoFundMes or things of that nature. It's more of a one-on-one type of thing. They try to limit each item of need to less than $250. They said if it's on Amazon, it's under $250, they can do it. If it can ship reasonably, they'll take care of it. They'll post it and then make that happen. The information I said needed very little. There's no personal identifying information there. There is no cost to the school system or our schools. This is all free to us. They do get their support from people who would like to sponsor or advertise or things. So if we have business or community members that want to do that, we put them in touch with Proposity, and they work out all those details for advertisement and things on their website. I think it would help us in the way of, being able to more efficiently utilize social workers with needs so that they're not having to make all of these contacts and things to meet some of these needs. It will help us with parent engagement or community engagement, because there are people out there that truly love to give and love to meet needs. I mean, they have the gift of generosity, just trying to figure out exactly how to do that. So it helps us to link needs that we have with people in our community that are wanting to do that. So again, it's a very simple, easy process. You'll see if you scroll on down to the bottom, it'll give you over to the side the actual process there where the need is identified. The people that we have identified to be our submitters, which would be our social workers, they would make the submission. Proposity kind of crafts the story from that submission, send out the notifications. Someone picks up that and says, I want to fulfill this need. It's done through Amazon. It's there for them. All they have to do is give the mode of payment. Once that's done, it's delivered through Amazon to us as the district, and then we supply that need. So that's kind of in a nutshell what Proposity is. As I said, I think it's something great now that would work. I appreciate Ms. McDonald bringing that to our attention, and just wanted to give that to you, food for thought, and see how you felt about it, and if it's something that we want to pursue further, to talk with them and determine how we go about meeting our goal. I know it would involve Ms. Green and our communications department of getting the message out there to the community for that, and see what we can do with this.
Thank you very much. Any questions, board members?
Mr. Chair, can I just give a couple of examples? I'm on the Proposity app that I downloaded on my phone.
Sure.
Incidentally, this application was invented by a son of parents that live out here in Sun City, and he was recently on the Today Show. So you may want to search Google and Proposity and the Today Show, and it almost crashed his system. It was so well received throughout this country. But anyway, I'm just looking at a couple of from Fulton County Schools. Ensure these kiddos have full bellies each morning with a bulk pack of instant pancakes, $30.97. Quench the thirst of a family of 6 with this 48 count of water bottles, $29.42. 12 pack of mac and cheese for a family out of Fulton County Schools. A 45 count snack box out of Fulton County Schools. Atlanta Public Schools is also on this. So it's just another avenue, as Mr. Akins mentioned, for this community to become involved and help those that are less fortunate than ourselves.
Very good. I was going to mention that I actually used to babysit Blake in the nursery at the Racket House years ago, making me feel very old at the moment. Yeah. He was born or raised here in Griffin-Spalding, and attended our school system, and is doing a tremendous job with this process that he's doing. So I am all in favor. Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Akins. Appreciate you updating us and bringing us up to where we're at with that, and we continue to hear more about how that's going to be implemented in the coming year.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Akins.
Board members, you have some information items within your packet: the monthly facility and maintenance report, the construction renovation progress summaries that are there, things that have been done or haven't been done. I know COVID put a halt on some of the things that could be done. A list of announcements, and Mr. Brown made notice that there is subject to possible change just depending upon requirements that are lifted or not. And so with that, board members, if there's no other info, we do not have anything for executive session this evening, but we do want to give opportunity for governance team or board member comments. And so I'm going to start at the bottom of my screen, and it looks like Mr. Brown, you get to go first.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to say thank you to everybody who's online attending. Thank you so much to our nutrition staff. Gave them a big shout out on Twitter for all the work that they have done throughout this pandemic to make sure that the scholars of the Griffin-Spalding County school system are fed. So from the bottom of my heart, I truly say thank you to them. Also want to introduce a new staff member of my team, Mrs. Amberly Thompson. She has received a fellowship through School Board Partners. Amberly is a teacher in Fulton County. And so she was partnered with me because she is a social studies teacher and she has an interest in running for office and doing great things in her community. So I want, on behalf of School Board Partners and me as the District 1 representative, I want to say welcome Amberly to the District 1 team as we continue to advocate on behalf and make the scholars' future brighter. Early voting ends on June 5th in Spalding County, ends on June 5th, and election day is June 9th. And so thank you so much, Mr. Chair. That concludes my report.
Okay, Ms. McDonald.
Well, number one, I just wanted to thank everyone for all the hard work they continue to do to get us through this crisis. And thank you so much. But I do want to give out a big shout out to Mr. Akins tonight and the nice article that was in the paper recently with regard to his team feeding our children during this pandemic. So Mr. Akins, again, I know I called you the day the article came out, but I just wanted to publicly thank you for your hard work with regard to feeding our kids during this time.
All right, Mr. Holmes.
Mr. Chair, I don't have much to say, but I concur with everything that has been said by the two previous board members. But I will add, I noticed I scrolled through the list of people that are on here, and I just want to thank a lot of our staff, you know, school staff at the school level staff that are taking their time to be on this site to educate themselves of what's going on in our system. That speaks volume. It's easier to do now. You know, I know we love that face-to-face contact, but I can attend about 3 or 4 Zoom meetings a day. And so it's easier to do. But I did notice a lot of them left when Mr. Aiken was giving his report. So I don't know what's going on with that. But we thank them for joining us, and I appreciate everything that everyone's doing to get us through this crisis.
Okay, Ms. Barberto. You need to unmute.
I thank the faculty and staff for everything they have done through this pandemic. You all have been absolutely incredible. And a big shout out to the seniors at our 3 high schools. Please know how proud we are of you. Please know that we are noting your accomplishments. You've done an outstanding job, and we're extremely proud of you. Congratulations.
Okay. Mr. Smith, do you have anything before?
Yeah, I would. Thank you. I'm going to piggyback on something Mr. Brown said about the voting next week, but also remember for those who have not completed the census, to please do that as well. That's still open, and I believe Spalding County has had a little bit better percentage of response than the state has, but still need to get 100% in there so we can get our due out of that. So thank you. It's hard to believe that it's been 11 weeks since the shutdown began in the middle of March. We were able to finally begin to bring staff back into our office on some kind of a rotating basis, and I appreciate what they've done. I appreciate the board's recognition of them. and the recognition of the work that's been done during this very difficult time to keep things going as well as we could. And also while working on making some plans for the coming year, we'll be briefing you on those at the June 16th workshop as well as to what those plans are looking like. I would like to also give a hearty appreciation to 12 of our, we had 12 last week when the Leadership for Change webinar was done, the Donna Beagle Opportunity Community Program that we had last week. We had 12 Griffin-Spalding County personnel on that call. I believe the most I ever saw actually logged on was about 44, 45. So I'm very proud that we had a large contingent of school system people on that call. Dealing with poverty is a huge issue in this community, and it's a big issue that our school system has to be part of. And I appreciate them doing that. As we mentioned the strategic planning process, I have had a chance to talk with the city manager and county manager about what that process might look like. We're at the beginning of needing to start our 5-year plan for the coming period as well. So this is very appropriate timing for us. While the city and county and schools all do very different things, there are things that we can work toward in common. And I believe that's what you'll see in this. We'll have our plan for things that we need to do educationally, but there'll also be those things in our plans that become a community cooperative effort. And that's what we're kind of looking forward to in that. So I appreciate the board's support of that.
All right, wonderful. Board members, just know that Mr. Smith will be finishing his assessment. That will be emailed out before our next meeting. So you'll get that sometime next week. And we will have executive session to go over his evaluation at that point in time in executive session. If you have anything else needed for that workshop, make sure that you get with me this week if you can, so that we can get the ball rolling, because those topics fill up pretty quickly. So make sure that you get with us. And if there is nothing else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by waving at each other. Have a great night. Love you guys.
All right, everyone, take care.
Thanks all.
Thank you for joining us, Angel.
Thank you for having me.
Stay safe. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All righty.